Bonjour, Kitamagi and Erlen Adishnikas, and welcome to this edition of Math Tier 2 Interventions. Today's episode, Reteach 3.12. Let's begin by reviewing our last session where we had quotients with zeros, which essentially was a reminder that if you get into a situation where your divisor won't go into a number, you put a zero and move down the row. You should compare your answers with these. In the first one, we know that 4 went into 8 two times, but when we brought down the 2, 4 won't go into 2, so we needed a 0, and then you bring down the 0, and 4 went into 25 times. Here we had a 5, then 15, 5 went into those equally. We brought down a 2, 3, 5 does not go into 2, so we put a 0, and that 2 became a remainder. Hopefully those went well for you. And now let's move on to today's content. Interpreting the remainder. Interpreting the remainder is one of those common sense things. You have to look at what are we asking and what makes sense as part of the answer. It's not going to be as black and white as some of is just simple division. There are some gray area. So let's look at the example problem. Mrs. Douglas takes 179 students to the Science Museum, as long as I get to go. The students eat lunch in the museum cafeteria. Each table in the cafeteria seats 8 people. How many tables do the students need? So we need to divide the students into groups of 8, so we end up with 179 divided by 8. If you did that whole problem, you'd get 22 with a remainder of 3. So now we have to figure out the interpreting the remainder part. Sometimes you will use only the quotient. Think how many tables will be full. There'll be 22 full tables. What is problem do you find there? Other than if you're the 3 students standing up and eating and spilling your food all over the floor and uncomfortable and unhappy because it's now on your shirt and your pants and you're embarrassed and you just want to hide in the bathroom the rest of the time. So that's no bueno. Sometimes you can use only the remainder. How many students are left after those tables are filled? Well, I don't see how ignoring the 176 other students is going to benefit us in this problem, or the 22 tables. Sometimes we add 1 to the quotient. Where will the remaining students sit? We're going to need another table. So you need to contact the museum and their maintenance staff to bring us a 23rd table. And that's how we're going to interpret the remainder. Now those 3 students are no longer standing up, spilling their food on the floor and on their clothing, being embarrassed because it landed in their lap, and hiding in the bathroom for the remainder of the science field trip. And everyone smiles. Smile. You know you just smiled because you're not that student who's wearing their food. So that's going to be the goal. Let's do this one together, number 1, and then you will do number 2 independently. A total of 140 students visit the Science Museum. They tour the museum in groups of 9. How many groups of students are there? So we need to divide 9 into 140. Let's grab my annotation tool. I'll use the draw here. This looks like a good spot. 9 into 140. Will 9 go into 1? Nope. So we go into 14. And it'll go in 1 time. Subtract, I get a 5. 5 is less than 9. I bring down, I get a 50. 9 will go into 50 5 times because I remember that 9 times 5 is 45. I subtract, I get a 5. I have 15, remainder 5. Now what do I want to do? Do I want to just have 15 groups and those 5 kids standing in the museum gift shop for the entire time because they can't tour the museum because I didn't get another adult? Do you want any students in a gift shop? No. So we need to find them another adult. So now, instead of 15 groups, we will need 16 groups. And now everyone is in a reasonable sized group and everyone's happy and no one's left in the gift shop, spending all of their guardian's money and probably breaking something. All right, I would like you go ahead and do number 2 and then check into our next episode to compare your answer with the answer in the answer key. I want to remind you that when talking about interpreting the remainder, we have to use some common sense. Sometimes we need to add one, sometimes we can just cut it off. If I was dividing 46 cans into 5 charities and there was 1 can left over and I had to make it equal, I just drop that can off. Maybe I give it to someone else. So be thinking about it. And sometimes there might be disagreement, and that's okay. We could talk about it. Just a reminder, as always, I still encourage you to attend the live stream of these or in-person events, as the case may be. If you have any questions, reach out to me at mireland@sagchipschool.net and have a minute. Mama P.